right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the fourth part in our Amazon Vendor Strategy series on optimizing your Amazon channel for peak performance during your peak time period. My name is Dina Podner and I'm the Marketing Manager here at Marketplace Strategy. Marketplace Strategy is a strategic marketplace sales acceleration agency servicing clients from Fortune 50 companies and startups. We manage more than $1 billion in Amazon revenue in a variety of categories, from grocery to personal care, home improvement, electronics, furniture, and many more. Our team includes strategists, designers, writers, and advertising specialists trained and focused exclusively on Amazon. To view any of our other webinars in the Amazon Vendor Strategy series, you can visit our website at marketplacestrategy.com under the Resources tab, or when we send out this webinar deck as a follow-up, you can directly click on the links here. Just some housekeeping before we get started. If for any reason you have to step away or miss a portion of the webinar, the entire session recording and slide deck will be sent out as a follow-up. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll bring them up at the very end during our question and answer portion. Any questions that are left unanswered will be answered via direct email follow-up after the webinar. Presenting today, we have Jeff Walkoff, our VP of Sales and Marketing, and Sam Jennings, our lead strategist. I'm going to hand it over to Jeff to get started today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for joining us. So, just a quick look at what the agenda is going to look like today. The first thing we're going to do is just some high-level numbers that relate to peak seasons in general on e-commerce and Amazon. Secondly, Sam is going to take you through just how to approach your peak season as a whole. We'll go through 4 key areas of focus that are, we specifically believe you should address when preparing for a peak season. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about maximizing residual value and or bouncing back from peak seasons, whether they're successful or less so. So let's start first with some peak seasons here by the numbers. And so we'll start with an obvious place, which is the holiday season, and specifically the coming holiday season. So first is the expected growth of online sales overall during this period. Internet retailers expecting U.S. shoppers to spend $120 billion with online retailers between November 1st and December 31st, which is up 15% over last year, which is actually pretty impressive considering, it's not as if e-commerce wasn't what it was right now a year ago. So it's still growing pretty steadily. As far as Amazon specifically, they're expected to account for about 40% of all revenue during the holiday season spent online. That's actually a lower percentage of online sales than they average the remainder of the year, which is actually closer to about 50%. But in any event, it's actually expected to be up in 2018 from 35% to 40%, which represents about $9.4 billion in incremental sales. But just so we want to make sure you guys understand, we're not just here to talk about the holidays. Different companies have different peak seasons at different times of year. And because we know the holidays aren't the only time that's important for brands, we want to take a quick example here with back to school. This affects all sorts of industries. And here you can see the role that Amazon is playing in that realm. In addition to obviously being a huge time for parents purchasing school supplies and backpacks and lunch boxes, lunch foods, clothes, all sorts of things. This new report found that Amazon was the retailer most used by teachers in 2018, which also speaks to Amazon's growing, B2B category and Amazon Business specifically. And how about another peak season here? Let's talk about Mother's Day. Certainly there's plenty of other similar holidays like this. Conventional wisdom might be that people don't necessarily go to Amazon just to do basic searches for gifts. We think more like they know what they're looking for and then they search for a certain product. So these numbers from JumpShot tell a different story. Really, where in May of 2018 this year, Mother's Day gifts was actually the #2 search across all of Amazon, which is pretty impressive. it just shows that people are looking for ideas from Amazon itself as to for gifts. And anecdotally, everyone seems to mention to me that Black Panther is number one here. So actually, this is a quite an aside, but very interesting. If you look across several months of this, the only things that rank are typically generic terms for electronics, laptop, headphone, Nintendo Switch, like you see here. And the one exception is movie licenses. Black Panther, Thor, Star Wars all had searches rank in the top 10 of a month in the first half of this year. So again, it doesn't have too much to do with what we're talking about today, but I thought that was pretty interesting when we were going through these numbers. And now, Sam is going to walk through how to approach your peak season.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. All right, so before we jump into kind of the meat of the webinar, which is really the 4 key areas of focus for your peak, I just wanted to kind of discuss the overall philosophy you should have when approaching your peak season. So as everyone knows, holidays and peaks are amazing for capturing increased traffic and sales and really taking advantage of all the additional eyes that are going to be on Amazon. But really what you need to have a strategy around is to ensure that you're staying competitive and you're driving residual value. So this is really the crucial opportunity here for brands, is really to drive long-term value from your peak. The top brands are really not thinking about peaks as a short-term sales game, but really understanding that there's an opportunity to drive long-term sales growth and impact to the business, impact that will grow not only after the peak, but really into the next year and up until kind of the next peak time frame. So this is just one example of an MPS client in the school supplies category, actually, that we started to work with in spring of last year. You can pretty clearly see that September is their peak month, which is the back to school season. And then what we really wanted to show here was kind of the idea of residual value, which you can see is happening throughout October, November, and December. So this was one where we kind of put together a full strategy for the peak. We were running promotions, advertising, marketing efforts up until September, and continued to run those efforts post-peak to kind of continue to drive value. And then you can see, or what you can't see on this, is that going into 2018, we saw really strong results kind of coming off of that Q4 timeframe as well. All right, so what makes the idea of residual value happen? That's super important to understand. I'm sure everyone has kind of heard something like this before, whether it be the flywheel effect or the virtuous cycle. But this is kind of the idea that one of Amazon's top organic ranking factors when it comes to their algorithm is that it really takes into consideration an item's sales velocity. So how much has that item sold in the past week, in the past month, et cetera. This really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Amazon wants to show the items that are most likely to catalyze sales at the top of those organic search results. So that's kind of how they deem which product should be at the top of results. So really the goal here is to get more eyes on our pages, which is that top bucket of discoverability, and then convert more customers into actually buying your products, which is the buyability bucket there on the bottom. Putting those two factors together, understanding all the levers that go into each of those, in turn gets you more sales, which then, because of the virtuous cycle and because of Amazon's ranking algorithm, will be showing your products at higher up in the search results. So really, to bring this back to the idea of the peak time frame, if we understand all of the levers that play into both of these buckets, we understand the virtuous cycle, we can really build a game plan for our peak time frame that drives as much residual value as possible kind of after the fact. All right, so now that we understand the goal and kind of how that residual value works, really what you want to do before we get into the strategies and the tactics is consider all of the variables that are affecting your peak time frame. So these are some of the questions that we would ask and kind of go over with clients when planning, just to kind of understand all the different variables that are at play, how those variables kind of affect any marketing that you'll be doing, and kind of affect the product that you're promoting. So first one being, do you have a budget set aside for this time period, or do I, need to create one that fits into a larger quarterly or a yearly budget? That's obviously a very important discussion. What is my inventory position? We want to make sure that we're running promotions and advertising on items that we do have a good inventory position on. One of the worst things you can do in a peak is stock out of a product and not be able to fulfill purchase orders or anything like that. So That's super important to ensure. Knowing the duration of your peak time frame. So this kind of goes back to understanding whether it be via third-party data or historical data that you can see in your Amazon account. What is the length of that peak time frame? For something like Prime Day, it's 36 hours, so it's a very small period of time. Whereas something like Halloween, buyers are going to be spreading their purchases across a longer period of time, and this really affects kind of how you would go about planning for this time period. It's important to obviously understand your goals with the peak. So, is it to drive, a strong ACOS on your advertising efforts? Is it to increase sales year over year? Are you looking to do kind of more of a brand impression play where you're trying to drive more long-term return on investment? So, understanding those is important. And then, lastly, really understanding, is this the first time that you kind of tested the water with some of these marketing efforts for your peak time frame? Or is this going to be something that you have done kind of previously where you can really dig into that data and learn from what's happened in the past and what is effective and not effective? So these are just some of the many questions that you should be considering when planning for the time frame. There's no one-size-fits-all strategy. We're not going to be able to give you any direct, exact approach of how to go into the peak and what to do. But really knowing all of your options and understanding the answers to these questions is kind of the best way that you'll be able to strategize for your peak and drive the most, the most successful and residual value. All right, so now we can get into the good stuff. So there's a ton of different tactics to consider that really play into that virtuous cycle and play into the success of your peak. What we've tried to do here is really narrow it down to the 4 key areas of focus that we know to drive the largest sales opportunity and largest residual value for the brands that we've seen on Amazon. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through these 4 areas. The first one being the advertising strategy, planning, and best practices. We have kind of the various promotion types and which ones to leverage based on your situation. Content and creative strategies that are going to help to increase discoverability and viability. And lastly, looking at some different fulfillment methods that are really going to help to maximize the sales potential during your peak. All right, first, so let's jump into advertising. So this is a pretty big section. Obviously, we all know advertising is extremely, extremely important. It has been changing significantly. It seems like Amazon's coming out with new betas and new optimizations to their platform on a weekly basis, which is really awesome. And then we can also all see that the search results are changing drastically. So Amazon's really aside from showing their own private label and their own brands that they have, they're also really just showing a lot of different paid placements within the search results and kind of moving down some of the organic placements. And then also, the competition is becoming more and more sophisticated. All of these things are going to be leading to increased bids and budgets during your peak time frame. On the right here, we have kind of an interesting statistic. On Prime Day, across all of the accounts that we manage for advertising, we saw ad spend grow 64% from the day before Prime Day compared to the day of. So that's just kind of shows you how much of a growth there is in advertising during that peak time frame. Obviously, if it's something like Mother's Day or Halloween, there may be a little bit more of a spread out time period of increased bids and budgets, but just again, something to really consider there. So what can brands be doing to capitalize on this increased traffic and stay ahead of the competition that's increasing their spend as well? The biggest thing pre-peak is to make sure that you're completely prepared and ready to go. So the first one here that we recommend is building out a timeline that plans your search spend by campaign and also by day, week, and month. If it's something like Prime Day that you're planning for, where it's a 36-hour period, you may want to get super granular and understand by day or even by hour what your campaign spend is going to look like. If it's something that's a little bit longer term of a peak, you may want to look more, by week or by month. You want to plan this out with understanding all of your media buys that you'll be doing during this time frame, as well as any off Amazon or on Amazon promotions that you're running to make sure that all of these different variables are kind of aligned with each other. Depending on the length of the peak, you're going to want to plan to methodically ramp up your advertising spend at least 30 days ahead of the peak, which will really allow you to get that sales velocity going and kind of jumpstart your organic rankings. So this is a very, very important piece. We don't want to just kind of wait and save all of our budget and then just do a lot of advertising, a lot of promotions in one day. We kind of want to methodically ramp up to that time period. This is really going to help to get us in good organic position before and then after to really drive that residual value that we were talking about. We also recommend preparing your campaigns way ahead of time. So this means that if you have any peak specific campaigns that you're creating that are going to have ad copy and keywords around that peak time frame, creating those, getting them ready to go and queued up within your advertising platform. And then also preparing any bid and budget adjustments that are going to be happening during your peak. The idea here is get all of that ready so that you can look at your plan, understand what days you need to turn those on, and then just flip a switch and you're pretty much good to go. And lastly here, it's super important to understand the purpose of each ad type, which is we're gonna jump into that a little bit here in the next few slides to kind of understand how the different ad types play into your overall strategy. Okay, great. So to get more detail on all things advertising related, I definitely would recommend you guys check out our recent vendor series webinar that kind of delved a little bit deeper into the advertising side of things. What I want to do here is just quickly illustrate kind of the different advertising options as they relate to kind of the overall funnel and searcher intent. So what we have here is kind of the three different search ad types, from sponsored brand ads, which used to be headline search ads, all the way down to sponsored products and product display ads. And then on the left, we have the demand side platform. So we're likely going to be having a webinar on this in the future, so not going to dive too deeply here, but this is the programmatic display advertising option that brands have. And this includes everything from remarketing, which is really a no-brainer during Q4 and other peak time frames. And it's a great way to get started with DSP, and everything to lookalike audiences and more strategic advertising options like that. What we've seen is that DSP is extremely complementary to your overall advertising and marketing strategy on Amazon, and it kind of just helps to increase that overall return on ad spend. All right, so first we're going to jump into sponsored product ads. So this is kind of our mid-funnel option. These are the advertisements that display, and they're based on keywords within the search results. We typically see the highest return on ad spend with these placements, and we recommend having the highest amount of your spend allocated to this ad type. What we recommend here first is really prioritizing your budget allocation of your sponsored product ads based on the organic sales opportunity of the items will sell most during the peak time frame. So when we talk about organic sales opportunity, that essentially means looking at all your products, understanding which items have a very high search volume during these peak time frames, and which items are ranked on the first page organically or ranked somewhere kind of in that area, so that when we do spike that sales velocity, we're going to get a lot of organic value out of it, which is really the goal here in driving that residual value. When building out the peak time or peak focused campaigns, or even optimizing existing sponsored product ads campaigns, it's definitely important to research and identify some of those peak themed search terms. So these may be things like Halloween focus, like we have here, or whatever it may be. An example of this would be something like best holiday deals for blenders. So this isn't something that we would normally bid on, and would not be captured within our existing campaigns. So doing the research around what people are searching during these timeframes to find your products is very important to add into your campaigns. The other really big thing here is to ensure that you're harvesting negative keywords before the peak and looking at historical data to kind of understand what keywords in the past have caused wasted spend within your account. The peak time frame is an area where you're going to be driving a ton of traffic. You want to make sure that traffic is as relevant as possible and is driving high amounts of conversions as well. So another best practice here that we always recommend too, and is super important for your peak, is to make sure that you're always running automatic sponsored product ad campaigns. The biggest thing here is you're going to get a lot of sales through these campaigns. And the sponsored product ad campaigns that are automatic really give you a ton of data post-peak to really learn from what consumers were searching for. So this is really important. It's also important because automatic sponsored product ad campaigns are the only ads that allow you to show up in the detail page carousel. That's usually below the fold, and it's kind of the drag of the different products that are related to this item, which we have screenshotted there below. Okay, great. So the next is the sponsored brand ads, formerly known as the headline search ad. So this is the highest funnel option and appears as a banner at the top of search results and is also keyword based, similar to the sponsored product ads. Because this is an ad type where you can control the ad copy and the hero image within the placement, a great tactic is to align the ad with the peak. So, for example, if you are advertising candles, you could create a sponsored brand ad in early May that references gifts for Mother's Day in the ad copy. So creating an ad that specifically references the time frame and then also has keywords within that campaign that are targeting that time frame as well. So going off of that, you want to ensure that you have very tight product to keyword to ad copy matching. So that sounds kind of funky, but for example, you wouldn't want to have an exact match keyword of candle in your Mother's Day campaign because that person may not necessarily be shopping for their mom. They might just be shopping for the generic keyword for candle. And you would be better off funneling that person towards a campaign that's a little bit more generic that has a different landing page. So super important to understand the intent of the search and match that with the keyword, the ad copy, and the landing page. So that kind of goes into the bottom point here that we have of making sure that your landing pages kind of match with that campaign. So if we have a branded search campaign that targets a keyword like Yankee candles, we would want to send that consumer to our store homepage where they can kind of see the full assortment of candles that we have. They can browse, all the different options we have and kind of learn more about the brand. Whereas if it's a more category-focused search term, whether it be a branded category search or a non-branded, for example, Yankee fall candles, we would want to send that customer to a category landing page within our store. So that would be a custom page that we would have in our store that would be focused completely on fall candles. And then lastly, if it's a more specific product search, like pumpkin spice candles, we would want to send that customer to more of a custom URL within Amazon that lists out all of the products that are most related to that search term. So long story short here, we essentially just want to make sure that we're increasing our conversion rates as much as possible by increasing the buyability of the products, optimizing our ad campaigns to have the right matching, and really influencing that overall virtuous cycle. So the last option that we have from an ad type standpoint is the product display ad. So this is the lowest funnel option because you're essentially trying to gain a sale from a customer who has already landed on a product page. So you're kind of trying to steal that sale away or complement that existing sale. So this option is by far the lowest return on ad spend option, but that shouldn't deter you from using them, especially in your peak. It can be a very strategic option that could be kind of a good addition to your overall advertising strategy. What we do is we break up product display ads into two different buckets. The first one being defensive. So this is the idea of ensuring coverage across all of your top sellers. So you would actually be advertising on your own products. And the idea here is that we want to make sure that we have coverage so that other competitors are not stealing away sales by creating their own product display ads. The second option here is the offensive product display ads. So this is actually where we are taking more of an offensive approach by trying to target similar competitor products and steal sales away from those competitors, or we're targeting complementary products where we're trying to get a consumer to add two products that are similar to each other. So one kind of nitty-gritty example here would be if you're during your peak time frame and you see one of your closest competitor products is actually running a product display ad that is not running a deal, and your product that is a close match to that is running a deal, you could go ahead and create a product display ad on their product to kind of steal those sales away, since you will likely have a higher conversion rate. So a general best practice when thinking about kind of the strategy behind product display ads, it's best to create them with a one-to-one match. This basically means that you have one display product from your catalog and one target product that you are looking to place your product on via the advertisement. So this really allows for the highest opportunity to convert, since the two items should be a very strong one-to-one match with each other. And it also allows for complete clarity when it comes to data and really learning from what worked there. And then lastly, something that we always tell our clients, do not run interest-based targeting, especially during peak timeframes. This is kind of a general no-no due to the fact that it really casts a wide net and you don't know which types of products that it's going to. These are usually kind of category-based interest, and Amazon doesn't give you a whole lot of data around what products are being shown and kind of where your ad is being placed. So the last thing that we want to do in this peak time frame is send customers to our pages with a potential for a low conversion rate, because again, that kind of plays into the overall buyability factor that's going to influence our virtuous cycle. So making sure that you have that one-to-one match and you're not doing interest-based targeting is definitely recommended. Okay, great. So next, to kind of wrap up the advertising piece, we want to talk a little bit about ensuring that we have systems and processes in place during the peak. So we recommend planning and pacing your budgets for continuity. So this essentially just means making sure that you understand the spend, you understand the budgets, and you're not running out of spend before the day is over or before the week is over, because you want to make sure that you kind of have that always on approach. If you do lose out on a portion of the day or a portion of the week from an advertising standpoint, it's also going to negatively affect your organic ranking. So we want to make sure that we're really pacing to understand that we're kind of going for the whole day. The other super important piece is to make sure that you understand when consumers are shopping most for your products during this peak time frame. So, for example, you might find that candy is most frequently purchased on the nights leading up to Halloween. So it's vital to ensure you have a strong portion of your budget set aside for the nighttime of those specific days. Whereas a lot of times you might run through your budget before those nighttime hours even happen. So a lot of this involves daily monitoring and really understanding customer behavior of your product during that peak time frame and adjusting on the fly. So this is something where you're kind of going to have to go into those campaigns on a daily basis during the peak to kind of understand what's happening and adjust those campaigns. So going off of kind of bids and things like that, a question we always get is, how much should I be increasing my bids and my budgets? Amazon usually makes some kind of crazy claims as to the increases that are necessary. But really, the answer here is to look at historical data and then also look at the data kind of leading up to that peak to make your decisions. So these increases also should not be a blanket change. You should be making budget increases on a campaign by campaign basis, as opposed to just increasing all of your campaigns without a strategy. And your bids should also be made, bid improvements should also be made on a keyword by keyword basis to really have a strong thought process there. Another question that we get quite a bit is, should we be using Bid Plus? So Bid Plus allows for Amazon to increase the maximum bid in a campaign by up to 50% when ads are eligible to show in the top of the search results. So essentially just giving you the boost and the position you need when your bid is within range of that top result. So it's a really great strategy. We see this performing very well on the manual campaigns that are top performers that have a strong ACoS. If this is something that you plan to do during your peak time frame, we definitely recommend monitoring this very closely because you don't want it to run away with a large amount of your spend. And lastly, just kind of a little tip, make sure that you're using the bulk operations tool. This is really going to help, especially when you're planning ahead of time for your peak, to plan out all those budget and bid increases kind of across the board. It allows you to kind of flip that switch when the time comes, and then also being able to change it back post-peak because you're going to have a different strategy kind of after those, those top sales days are over with. All right, so that wraps up advertising. So now jumping into a very related topic of promotions. So there are a handful of options for on-Amazon promotions, which we're going to talk about first here. And each one has a different placement, a different result, and a different intent. And generally, here's a few kind of items of why promotions are great for the peak sales time frame. So they can provide short-term spikes in sales velocity. They can provide more gradual sales velocity increases pre-peak and post-peak. They can increase click-through rates and conversion rates, which really helps to drive value from an advertising standpoint, and a whole lot more. So there's a lot of different benefits, but the most important point here is that promotions shouldn't be really looked at as a standalone marketing tactic. You really need to understand all the options that you have, how it plays into kind of all the considerations that we talked through, and then create a plan that aligns with your goals and aligns with your advertising as well. So these are the options that you have within Vendor Central for promotions. So there's 6 available types. We aren't going to walk through each one because that would take forever, and some are more effective than others. But what we're going to do is kind of, one, recommend that you do a little bit of research offline to understand the intent of each one of these promotions and how it might play into your strategy. But really what we're going to do is dive into 2 promotion options that we have seen the most repeated success leveraging during peak timeframes for our clients, and this is coupons and lightning deals. So we're going to jump into each one of those a little bit deeper here. Okay, great. So both of these options are vastly different, and they kind of play into your strategy in a lot of different ways. So on the left, we have the lightning deal. These run on the Today's Deals page for up to 6 hours, or when your inventory runs out that you've set aside for that deal, or your budget, I should say. And they also show up in the search results on your search results page, and then also on the detail page. In short, I mean, they're providing a very large and short-term sales velocity spike, so that's kind of the goal with these. The deals page themselves can be extremely crowded, especially during these peak timeframes. So it's important to understand what makes a successful lightning deal, so that we are showing up higher in these deals pages. So we find that products with higher glance views and a strong historical sales velocity will rank higher on the deals page. So it's really best to go in with your top sellers to these lightning deals. It is not recommended to use a lightning deal during a peak time frame with the goal of launching a new product or trying to boost sales for maybe an underperforming product. We just know that that's not going to work as well as coming in with kind of our top performers. We also know that Amazon really loves deep discounts during this time frame. This kind of also affects your ranking within this deals page. So we definitely recommend having a pretty strong discount, 30% or even more for lightning deals, to ensure not only that you're ranking higher in the deals page, but also you're getting a really strong click-through rate and a good conversion rate on your deal. So on the right, we have coupons. So coupons are completely different. You can run them for any period of time, and they only display in the search results and on the detail page. So they're not displaying in like a specific deals section of Amazon. They provide a longer term, more gradual increase to sales velocity, and can really be used to kind of garner that residual value. With coupons, you're not finding new customers via the deals page, but you're just capitalizing on customers that are finding your products, whether they be via organic search or paid search. And we're really increasing click-through rates and conversion rates of our item. So we find that coupons perform best when used in tandem with a strong advertising strategy. And although they are really, really great for the top performing items, they're also really effective if you have decided to launch a new product during your peak, or if you want to promote some more of your long tail items, which are ones that are, not necessarily the top performers, but still, need some love. At the end of the day, it's best to run a mixture of both of these coupon types and even potentially some others that we went over in the 6 options, along with a strong advertising strategy. So, for example, we've seen a lot of success with running coupons in tandem with advertising up until your peak, and then during your peak day, running lightning deals on your top sales velocity items, and then post-peak, continuing to run advertising and coupons, and kind of having, like we said, a plan for all of those weeks or days kind of leading up, and then also post-peak. All right, so additionally, if it is a possibility for your brand, you should definitely consider leveraging off Amazon channels to promote products and deals prior and during peak time periods. So this is a really great option because you can reach your existing audience of high converting customers, whether that be through an email list or utilizing your social media audience. You can also reach completely new audiences through social advertising and different tools like that. And lastly, the benefit here too is that Amazon loves off Amazon traffic. So this is another kind of key indicator to them that a product page is, a strong performer. It's really going to help to boost those organic rankings and drive that residual value. We recommend utilizing social media platforms and your email list to promote any lightning deals or coupons that are being run. So this is something where you can let people know that the day it's going to be run on and kind of prepare them for it. But then you can also run some type of advertisement or a post that is happening during the actual coupon or lightning deal that's taking place. So the landing page for these products could be the exact ASIN that is being run during that deal, or you could actually point them to the store. We could point them to the store page that actually houses all of our deals. This is something that Jeff's going to get into in a little bit, of kind of how you would structure that and the strategy around that. And then also, you can take advantage of Vendor Central's promo code. So this is basically a unique promotional code that you would provide either one-off to a customer, or you could provide it to an audience and kind of provide them with a unique code that's going to give them some type of discount. So we see this working extremely well too. So lastly here, just want to make sure that everyone understands it's super important if you are going to be running off Amazon promotions towards your deals to really understand any marketing efforts that you're using with these channels by tracking any traffic that is coming to your store using the Store Insights tagging feature. So this is something that they somewhat recently rolled out that allows you to track other channels and understand how they're influencing your store traffic and sales. Another call out here is that Amazon's rolling out a new invite-only attribution beta. So this is going to be used to analyze sales impact across media channels off Amazon to kind of help maximize your return on investment. We are a part of the program, and we're super excited to kind of see how it plays into our strategy for Q4. It's definitely in its infancy, but as we learn more, we're going to be kind of rolling out different things for clients as these peak timeframes unfold.
Great, thank you, Sam. You covered quite a lot there. All right, so we're going to go to number 3 here now, which is content and creative. So let's start with with general content audits and things. And to say that your listing should have optimized copy and an enhanced image library should really go without saying. If you're not employing a thoughtful keyword strategy and incorporating that into your back-end keywords, your bullets, your product descriptions and titles, that's obviously where you need to start. The days of being able to succeed with generic bullet points from product packaging, or the ever so common first bullet that just has NA there, are over. At least in any category that's going to be competitive during a peak season. So first and foremost, if you haven't done this across your catalog, it's certainly the place to start. There are particular best practices for all those copy elements. They're always changing, and we obviously could do an entire webinar on copy optimization and what really are seen as best practices. But for the purposes of this, let's just say you need to make sure your top performers are in a position to be found through a variety of searches, and that obviously means expanding your copy in a thoughtful way. Secondly, obviously, we want to make sure that we're maximizing conversion rates. That's the buyability part of the virtuous cycle that Sam described earlier. When people shop on Amazon, they're probably considering 2 or 3 or more options, multiple tabs, and selecting probably with a combination of price and reviews and then the product page itself. So our primary push for maximizing conversion rates comes from optimizing the product image library. Amazon reports that 80% of people who purchase a product on Amazon look at every image of that product. So if all you're offering are the standard images of a product from a few angles or photos of the packaging, you're missing a pretty substantial opportunity to stand out among the few options that a customer is likely considering. So for this, we definitely advocate the creation and implementation of informational images that highlight product features, that share important information like instructions or dimensions, or simply push that the product comes from an established and reputable brand. And sometimes one image can accomplish all 3 of those things. Many of you might have lifestyle images of your products in use. It's fairly common, but for us, that's really not enough. Those help substantiate the brand, certainly to show people using the product, but certainly they're not really doing much of anything to differentiate from competitors, which is ultimately what we're trying to do here. This, like copy, is something that everyone should be doing already, but obviously it's not. If you don't have these, we strongly recommend creating some images that push product features or differentiation during your peak season. So another great idea for the image library is to create copy or images that are specific to the peak time period. So you can see a couple of those examples on the right with the ornament and then with the Halloween candy there. There's some limitations to this. We haven't really had an issue with mentioning the period or the holiday. For example, if you use back to school or stocking stuffer or Father's Day gift into the copy, but What you can't do is anything that insinuates like a limited time offer. You should really have to avoid terminology like sale or deal buster. And a lot of those times, those things will not get approved. So, unfortunately, there's no definitive standards there, and as many of you have probably experienced, Amazon can be pretty inconsistent. So it is tedious, but if you have any issue getting content approved, you just need to sort of continue to submit, try different things until at some point it goes through. All right. Now, it's also important to note that the percentage of shopping this holiday season on mobile is expected to be pretty considerable. Salesforce recently said it's expected to be around 68%, which is higher than I would have thought. And there's definitely a different set of criteria to consider when you're trying to convert via mobile. So, first and foremost, only a limited number of characters of the title are going to be displayed. So you want to make sure that any important differentiating keywords are in that first set. Secondly, mobile severely pushes down and minimizes the bullet points, which makes it even more especially important to incorporate important aspects of the product that would usually be in bullet points right into the product image library. Also, we've seen success with something similar to the image trimmer or the image of the trimmer that you see there on the right, where basically it displays the specific variation right in the product image. So this basically allows people to be able to, when they're scanning the search results, they're able to see the specific variation that represents that particular listing. So finally, A+ pages, they do render differently during or on mobile, I should say. So we obviously want to make sure that we check how they're populating, just to ensure that it's still appearing in a way that you think makes sense and that tells the story that you want to tell. And finally, we strongly recommend tailoring your brand store to the holiday. Some brands will actually change the page itself to focus on the holiday, so you could do that. Or we actually recommend creating a separate page with the brand store that features particular products that might be relevant to the peak season, or maybe even features the products that you're running deals for. So these can be used as the destination for sponsored brand ads or headline ads, or they can be used as a landing page for off Amazon promotion, like social, if that's something that you're doing. So, just like copy and images, you got to be careful about what you say on these things. Amazon will deny them if they're too specific to certain things like deals or doorbusters or whatever. So ultimately, it's just important to do this ahead of time so you can troubleshoot any issues that arise from content that isn't approved. One other piece on this, brand stores also have great reporting, certainly well beyond that of other aspects of Vendor Central. So it's good to keep an eye on that and use that data to inform your strategy overall. All right, so let's talk for a minute about fulfillment methods before we wrap up. This is something a lot of you may know quite a bit about. More and more brands, big and small, are employing hybrid models of both vendor and seller central to maximize their presence and profitability. In fact, if you do go to the webinar section of the Marketplace Strategy website, you can find the recording of a session we did earlier this year about the hybrid model and using those two aspects of the channel and how they can be used together successfully. In this specific instance, we want to talk about inventory. So it seems pretty basic, but as you can imagine, a stock out is among the worst things that can happen to a product during a peak season. Not only then is it unavailable to customers, but it also slams on the brakes of any sales velocity that the ASIN has at the time, which really disrupts that virtuous cycle. So, unfortunately, Amazon Retail's inventory projections are not always very accurate, and in particular, they under order for new products. So, really, the best way to ensure stockouts don't ruin your peak season is to supplement with additional inventory. So that would be either through vendor central direct fulfillment or through a seller central account with via FBA, FBM, or a seller fulfilled Prime. Yeah, and I really can't stress how important this is. Obviously, you can't succeed during your peak season if your items aren't in stock. And again, this is particularly the case for new items. Amazon Retail's ordering algorithm is known to be pretty cautious and doesn't order in large quantities immediately, even if you're a big and substantiated brand. But inventory isn't the only way that you can use this balanced fulfillment approaches to help. For example, there are certain promotional types available within Seller Central, bundle coupon codes, buy one, get one coupons, different things you just cannot offer in Vendor Central that could be very compelling to your audience that you can offer through Seller, so you can maximize your promotional opportunities through Seller. Secondly, Amazon's early reviewers program is a great way to drive early reviews for new products. The capability also to send email follow-ups to customers through Seller Central can be very beneficial as far as driving reviews or increasing lifetime customer value. So there's a lot of different things that are available to the Seller Central side that aren't necessarily available on the vendor side that can be used for various purposes. And finally, really, it's about the data within Seller Central. As many of you may know, it's really vastly superior to the data available in Vendor Central. And this includes things like information on traffic and conversion rate and cart data. And having this data can obviously help you get a much better understanding of what's performing better, what product pages are struggling or excelling, and then potentially why. And through that, obviously, you can spread the best practices you learn across your catalog. So a lot of learnings that you get there that you otherwise really wouldn't see through Vendor. All right, finally, let's talk a little bit about maximizing residual value and bouncing back for what potentially would be a less than desirable holiday season. So obviously, whether or not it went well, there's things you want to be doing to ensure that you either continue to success or start to turn things around. So it's important to remember that so much visibility on Amazon has to do with that virtuous cycle, how you're currently selling. So you want to certainly avoid a big drop-off right after your peak season. And for that reason, you do want to continue to advertise following your post-peak, particularly for top products. But obviously, we want to make sure that you go in there and if you heightened your bids, that you bring those back down so you're not overspending. From a promotional standpoint, consumers do obviously look for sales right after their peak seasons. So this is a great time for coupons. For obviously anybody who put off purchasing or maybe perhaps got a gift card and are using them. So people certainly do look for deals after peak seasons as well. Let's see what else. So finally, this is when the remarketing side is actually really, really important. So whether or not you had a great peak season or you struggled, you probably had lots of eyes on your pages. So this obviously creates a ton of opportunity on the remarketing side. Now, currently, DSP can be run in two ways. The first is by making a buy-in to AMG through your vendor manager. With this route, there are minimum spends, and it's essentially on Amazon at that point to then control the campaigns. The other way is to work with an Amazon preferred agency like Marketplace Strategy, because these groups have direct access to Amazon's DSP platform, and they can fully control, they can customize, they can target, they can create like audiences, and then most importantly, they can actually measure very closely your remarketing and display efforts. So certainly something that could be very valuable to take advantage of people that maybe visited but didn't buy during your peak period. Also, obviously, you want to learn from your mistakes and from your successes. So one of the big things that you really need to do during that time, during your post-peak season, is just to pull as much data as you can and really take a look at it. Really try to get a sense of what you did correctly and what could have been done better, and then make sure that you're in a great position to improve moving forward.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for all of that great information, Sam and Jeff. We're going to jump into the question and answer portion now. So if you have any questions, please make sure to type them into the control panel where it says questions, and we're going to start answering those. But before we do that, this is just a reminder that this webinar will be sent out as a follow-up, both in video format so you can watch it again, or in the slide deck as a PDF as well. All right, well, our first question here, can you expand upon how Deal of the Day works?
Yeah, definitely. So Deal of the Day is a invite-only promotion that Amazon runs on a daily basis. If you have a contact at Amazon, whether it be a vendor manager or buyer, or even kind of more of a strategic advertising representative, they can kind of work with you to figure out what the best option is there. But yeah, definitely invite only, and something that you can kind of work with Amazon on.
Perfect. Okay, the next question is, I have a seller account. Can you walk through how I can leverage my seller account during the peak time frame?
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of going off of what Jeff said, the main idea here is that we really want to make sure that we are not stocking out of any specific items. So, really understanding your kind of sales velocity, what you project you're going to be selling during this time frame. Look at how much Amazon has ordered from you within Vendor Central, and kind of making sure that you have coverage via Seller Central on any specific items that may stock out. So really any of your top sales velocity items, it's a great idea to have as either an FBM or an SFP offer within Seller Central as almost like a safety net strategy for those products. A couple other things that Jeff had touched on, which are super important as well, is just leveraging some of the additional marketing tactics. So Seller Central allows you to do things like cross-selling coupons, buy one get one coupons, different things like that can definitely increase conversion rates during these peak time frames. So if it's something that you're launching a product during this time frame, or trying to get additional sales, we highly recommend utilizing things like that, early reviewers program, email follow-up campaigns, all those types of things.
All right, perfect. The next question, just reading here. The next question is, I have a vendor account. What do you recommend to do when Amazon doesn't accept your promotion because of the financial threshold issues?
Yes, definitely. So this is something that comes up quite a bit. I mean, there's a handful of different reasons why Amazon may or may not accept your promotion. So there's basically Amazon's recommended promotions, which we find are obviously much easier to get accepted because Amazon is recommending them. And those are usually the most effective because if Amazon is recommending them, they're going to be placed highest in the kind of search results on those deals pages. But if there is a product set outside of those recommendations that you would like to run through a promotion, there is a plethora of reasons why they may deny them. One of them being financial threshold issues, and this is essentially where Amazon has decided that that product is not profitable enough for them to continue to promote that and sell it through their platform. Very similar to basically if they shut down your advertising for an item, or if they crap it out, which is can't realize a profit. So what we would recommend in this instance is to create a case and just try to further understand why Amazon has done this. At the end of the day, they're most likely not going to be able to turn it around for that specific product because there's a exclusion in their system that has kind of told Amazon that they're not able to run that. It's all algorithm based and automated. So we would recommend choosing another product and then taking that product and running other types of promotions. So doing coupons and or price discounts, other things that are really going to increase the click-through rate and the conversion rate of that product, and making sure that you're advertising it heavily as well.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. The next question is, during an actual event day of, what can you do to ensure success?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things you should be doing during the event. And again, it kind of goes back to how long that actual event is. But let's say, it's just a couple of days long and you really need to be focused for those couple of days to see how things are performing. So we recommend, one, just kind of monitoring your lightning deals and any other promotions that you're running up until kind of that time frame of it happening, to make sure that Amazon hasn't denied them or anything has gone wrong with them, especially with things like coupons where you've allocated a budget. We want to make sure that the budget is still on during the peak time frame, and that's something where you can usually extend your budgets if necessary. The other thing that you want to do is mostly from an advertising standpoint. So really going into your campaigns, monitoring kind of the top ad spend campaigns that you've allocated a lot of budget towards, and especially ones where you're a little bit more aggressive, and just ensuring that you're not your budgets aren't ending within those campaigns, and those campaigns are being paused. We would definitely say that's probably the most important thing. There's not a ton of optimizations outside of potentially making some bid adjustments that you can do day of. It's really best to have that strategy going in and kind of let your optimizations do the work, and then afterwards kind of analyzing that data.
All right, out of respect for everyone's time, we are going to end our webinar today. So thank you so much for everyone for attending. And for more information, please check out marketplacestrategy.com. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to send an email to the email addresses on the screen, or we will be sending out a follow-up email. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.